there is this belief that there is a whole bunch of bad science that's going on. And the reason why is that researchers are incompetent, that they're problematic in some sort of way, and they lie, cheat, and steal in some sort of way. And I'm going to tell you, there's two things I'm going to, first of all, tell you. Yes, that does happen. We're human beings. There is a lot of human nature that happens within the scientific field. And so you might, first of all, you might be thinking like, how is he saying that? He's a professor. That shouldn't be the case. I'm going to tell you the second thing that I want you to do is go out and try to write a research paper on a weekend. Spend a weekend doing it. See how you feel. See if it makes you feel good and whether that research paper is actually any good. Try to collect some data on something in the real world, something that's really even close to you, like your family and friends, and just ask them things. See what happens when you do that. What is the result of when you actually do that? You'll realize that's actually really difficult to do. It is very challenging. You don't know where to start and you don't know where to begin. Nobody really knows. You might get some insight from other people that are in your family, and they're going to say the same thing. They don't know where to begin. They don't know how to do this. And so what we can see when we do this is that the reason why there's a whole bunch of human nature involved is that the entire process is very uncertain and challenging, and nobody knows what the right answer actually is when they're doing that. So there is this thing that happens within the scientific field, is that we have a rigid set of requirements in terms of what people get paid and what it actually looks like. And that's because, people want to make sure that their money is being divvied out correctly. Whether you work in a private school or work in a public school, taxpayers want to make sure that your money is divvied out appropriately and it's fairly done and all of that kind of stuff. The great things that taxpayers and government should actually do, right? They should question those things. And even in private schools, the same things are happening. Even though that some of them have a whole bunch of money, they are obligated to watch after that money and do a good job of watching after that money. Now, here's the challenging part, is that even though we have these rigid structures and how things actually work, when you go and do it, it is a lot more difficult than you thought it would actually be. Now, I'd encourage you to think about a nice profession to think about. There's two professions that I think about sometimes when I'm thinking about the research career. First one is building houses, and not just building the cookie cutter houses that everybody knows about, but building an original house. When you go and do that, when you try to actually go do that, you'll realize it's very hard to do. You don't know where to begin, and you don't know how to do any of this, the building part of it. And then you have to find contractors and talk to people. And it's a mess, and it takes years, and it's really expensive, and you're frustrated. And by the end of it, if you're married with somebody, you're probably ready to be divorced. That's the conversation almost everybody has. Now, the other one that you can think about that is actually quite similar is a sculptor or an artist of some way, where they're looking at a blank canvas. And they're looking at that, and they're thinking, what do I do with this blank, weird canvas that I actually have? How do I make something of it? And the truth is they have to dream it up, and they don't know. And sometimes they'll go through many iterations of trying this, and it doesn't work out for them. So there's lots of frustrations and anxiety and all of these emotions that happen. And it's not just something that you do in a weekend. It's something that you do many, many years. And so the reason why people lie, cheat, and steal, even though, we try to be as competent, often, there are people that are very smart. Often there's people that are very, very competent. But the problem is that we have to fit within this rigid structure. I'm not going to tell you any of that sort of rigid structure, but statistically, we have a rigid structure that we want to behave within. And because of that, we have to, sometimes people game these structures in various different ways because they're astute, just like anybody else would. And the reason is because their livelihood, their life actually depends on it. They don't get paid. They, sometimes they're in poverty because of the fact that they are not complying with these rigid structures that we have. And so it's this balance that we face, right? That people face, that they have to fit within certain ways of doing things, but at the same time, they need to get things done, just like anybody else would, right? I'd beg you to go talk to somebody that builds a house and ask them about the little corners that they have. And it's really fun because they'll look at the corners and say, "Oh, that's garbage. This doesn't work." Everybody else would be like, "Oh, that is the thing, right? Like, that's a house. It works." But they're going to look at that and they're going to see all of these mistakes because they were thinking about prioritizing their time and thinking about trying to get this thing done. And so the same thing happens within the research world, because you're making this trade-off of, I need to actually get things done. I need to produce things. But at the same time, I want to be as open and honest and transparent and all of that kind of stuff as I possibly can. And it becomes this real challenge where you face internal conflict of interest, right? Or what's called cognitive dissonance is a fancy term, when you're struggling inside and you don't know which is the right answer. So I encourage you to think about that in your life in terms of what is going on with you and how you handle things. So sometimes what I tend to do is think about, even though it's frustrating and I get angry and I have all of these emotions, I come back to thinking about, okay, if I am going to do this right, and in 30 years, somebody's going to look at this, what might it actually be? And so it helps me to think about things of the sort of prioritizing and getting things done, but also helps me to think about, what does it mean to do good research, to actually sit down and do it. And, the truth is we all cut these corners. We all, try to get things done expediently, just like anybody else would. But sometimes we have to take a step back and do things right. And that is a personal choice where you have to look at that. And I encourage you to think about what it is that you're actually doing, and encourage you to do some important soul-seeking stuff. So if you're either looking at researchers as, that science is kind of not done very well, I encourage you just to do it. Try it. And if you're thinking of that everybody is not doing, that they are incentivized to do rotten things and things like that, I encourage you to actually think about what you do in your life that requires some trade-offs of getting things done and getting it out the door versus doing things right. And you'll be surprised at how many times it actually pops up in your life every single day. And there's no right answer. I'm going to tell you that right off the get-go. But, thinking about what side you lie on most of the time, 51% of the time, you do things more righter, or you get things shipped and out the door. I encourage you to think about that, right? So if you do more righter, I know that's not a word, 51% of the time, and trying to getting things out the door 49% of the time, I think you're doing pretty good. Now, it would be great if we can shift those things together. I don't think we could do that individually. I think we need technology. That's another story. That's in the Reciprocity Project. Go check out the Reciprocity platform. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.